Man, I'm so happy to have you back on the podcast again.
Thank
This
you.
is good. I love anytime we get to talk
Yeah.
and hang out, man. You're running fast.
Right.
So for people people that's an understatement. For people who don't know what you've been up to, man, give us a little Michael Dinneen life update. How you been? How you doing?
I've been doing well. Thank you. My mom had some health problems, so I was back east with her, and I'm grateful that I was able to do that and be with her and help my dad out. My daughter, today's her senior luncheon.
How does that feel, man? She
It's
graduating.
I think I've been going so fast, I haven't let it sink in.
Yeah.
Or I'd start crying. But I'm also super grateful because it's like I never even thought I'd get to be a dad. So the fact that I am launching this beautiful, majestic, wild young woman, and she's going to be going to Panama. She's doing a missions trip in
Oh, cool.
Nicaragua, but I get some time in with her. But so today's her senior luncheon. 2 days from now, she graduates, and she's going to University of Texas, Austin, so she could be near her brother.
Yeah, both kids in
Caden.
Texas, huh?
Yeah, I'm getting a little time in with Caden.
Because he's at A&M.
He's at A&M, but he has an internship this summer, so he's only home for a couple of weeks, and then he's driving back down. So tonight we'll hang out as a family, but then we have a whole bunch of family coming in over the next few days, and then I go back for my 35th Boston College reunion. I've never been back to a reunion, and for high school or college. But I just decided this time I reunited with my cousin Carrie Dinneen in New York City a few months ago, and she said, why don't you show up? And I'm going to show up, but that's going to be trippy.
That'll be crazy.
Yeah, we could talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I was blacked out in the 90s, so this is going to be
people are going to be like, "You're doing what?"
Well, that and it's going to be Twilight Zone-ish.
Yeah.
And then, so there's a lot going on.
Yeah, man.
But I'm grateful for all of it. It's a little too busy, I think, right now, in that sometimes I'm like, what week is it? What month is it?
Yeah.
Things seem a little unsettled. So I love a lot of action, but I think sometimes it gets too much but things will slow down drastically in June.
Sure.
And that was one of the things I was going to ask you about. It's like, when you come back, we should do this.
Oh yeah.
Every time we get a chance,
100%.
and then see if something really cool comes out of it. So then at the very least, you and I get an hour in a month together talking about something cool.
Well, because I forget whenever we're recording, I always forget we're recording, and it's just like brothers hanging out, talking and chatting.
That's your gift.
And I love it. Yeah. It's so fun.
That's your gift, because I feel the same way. I feel it right now.
Plus I get free therapy, so this is great. I just relate to a lot of what you talk about and what you say. And one thing I love about us is, like, we'll sit down and we don't really have a direction. We're just like, what's going on? What's coming up in you lately? What's going on? And you were talking about, we didn't even like pregame anything. We're just like, you said, hey, I had an interaction at the gym today. I think I want to talk about it. So
that's right.
I love it because you'll say stuff and I just get curious and I'm like, okay, tell me more about that. Because, and you said this before we start recording, I want you to unpack it, but in a lot of ways, we're not all that different.
That's right.
Like, of course we have different stories, different paths that got us where we are. And I learned that here at Valiant.
Right.
Because, and I've told this 100 times, but I come in and I'm nothing like these guys. These guys are addicts. These guys have issues, these problems. I just got caught and now I have to go to, therapy jail for 90 days and all the ego, all the narcissism, all that stuff. And then by the end, I'm like, gosh, these guys are my brothers and I'm the worst of them all. Like, there's,
right.
But even in their different stories, their different, hurts, habits, hangups, addictions, whatever, we were way more alike than different.
That's right.
And
wow, you're hitting on like big time, like where I think we're going to go today.
All right, let's dive in. Let's go for it.
Yeah, no, because of the stories we tell ourselves about others and ourselves, and the narratives and the belief systems that are all appropriate. And you just described a whole bunch before you came in. Oh yeah. Before you came into treatment, this is not my crew. These are, I got to go to, and then what comes out of it, if you're willing, if you're in enough pain to actually open the heart up and have a different conversation inside yourself, you could end up coming out going, these are my brothers. Or you could end up coming out with the same solidified narratives about why you were there, 90 days of jail, so I guess the question is going to be that's coming up for me is at what point do we open our hearts to changing these internal narratives about the world and ourselves? Because even some of the ones that were correct at one point and saved our lives could be the obstacle to the next level of your soul development or your emotional development and your spiritual development, and be in the way of your own happiness,
Mm-hmm.
or there's just the next level of healing. But the way this all started, I was praying at the gym, and I didn't really have anything. I was like, I don't even know what Drew and I are going to talk about, but we'll be fine because
We're
monotonous
both
rambling.
talkers, and
Yeah,
it'll fill the space. That's
yeah, it's
for
like
sure.
monotonous rambling is still a defective character that I struggle with, so we will have no problem filling up.
Monotonous rambling.
But what I run into this guy. He's a Jersey guy, and he's been out here close to 90 days, and it's an uncomfortable thing because I think I have like some form of body dysmorphia to begin with. So it's like we're in the locker room, and he's a client, and he's in that phase of Valiant where he has a lot of free time because he's he's in that IOP phase, and so he's there, and it's good to see him. And he said something like, I said, "How you doing?" He said, I could see he's anxious, and he said, I have a poly today, polygraph, for those that are listening. And we do polygraphs. We send people out for polygraphs when there's been a fracture, when there's been infidelity or some sort of breach of trust in an area of relationship and intimacy. This is with his wife. And so in order for him to do this disclosure of, they're going to get on a plane, Dan Meyer and him are going to get on a plane. They're going to go back. They're going to do this disclosure, I think, tomorrow.
Okay.
And the disclosure, he has to confess basically, like, this is what I've done. This is what you know. This is what you don't know. And in order for a betrayed spouse to be able to heal from betrayal trauma, they most of the time really need to know the facts about, so they can actually know there's going to be no skeleton from the closet that's going to come back, and they can start to heal because it's all about trust. So can I trust this man? And so he has to pass polygraph before he goes back.
That's nerve-wracking.
And so he said, I'm nervous, but automatically I just went into, everything's relatable. So I said, when I was in your phase of recovery, I went straight into 12-step. I didn't go to rehab. So I'm going to meetings, and I'm like, Taster's Choice commercials were on at the time. It was 1991, and this dad and son talk on the phone. I start crying. I find out one of my best friends is dead. I feel nothing. I feel bad that I don't feel bad for that hour, and then or I'll flip into a rage and going down Route 9 in Boston for absolutely no reason because someone cut me off. Right, like there's this constant emotional swings, crazy dreams. Violent dreams, inability to really feel like the ground's, underneath you, feeling like people could see right through you. All these like 100 different attributes of what we call post-acute withdrawal syndrome, right? It's like something where the nervous system is trying to fight its way back. Like, wait a second, you're supposed to be smoking weed right now, or you're supposed to be drinking, you're supposed to be at the bar, you're supposed to be dissociating, you're supposed to, you're not numbing me out right now. What's going on? And everything becomes dysregulated internally, right? The brain has to recalibrate your emotions. You have to actually, in a lot of ways, act your way into a new way of life. Right?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Act your way into a new way.
So it's not, you can't think your way into right living, but you can start to show up, and your feet. I have a friend, Ann Meese, who says my feet got me sober. Right? She just kept going back to the meetings. She just kept doing what she was told, and her feet got her sober, not her brain.
Well, right? And I don't want to detour because I want don't lose your train of thought because I love where you're going. But I will say, we could maybe talk about this later, but I don't know how people do that without a place like Valiant. And I'm not saying that to give a commercial. I'm just saying, for me personally, when I was in pause, there is no way, if I wasn't in a safe, accountable environment like Valiant, that I was stuck with it.
Right.
I was too crazy.
Well, most of the time, and I'll go back.
Okay.
But I'll detour for a sec. Most of the time we do get to that place where we're like, screw it. I knew my life back then, and I know I'll take the lumps, and I know I'm messed up, and I know there'll be consequences for going back to this old lifestyle. But but at least it's known, and at least I know how to handle it, and at least I have some relief. But this uncharted territory where I feel like a whack job all the time, this entry into a new life is painful and sketchy. And so, well said, because if you don't have a box around you, and you don't have the guardrails, and you don't have the hope, and you don't have the guidance, and you don't have people that can embrace you, and you're probably going to turn back.
Well, I just needed a place to pitch a fit. Like this was a place where I would just lose my mind over simple stuff. And looking back, it felt like insanity. But I don't know if I wasn't in a place like this, because I'm sure it's possible. I mean, I know people do 90-90 in meetings and all this stuff. But I had to be in an environment like this where I was not driving. I didn't have my phone. I had my keys, accountability. And most of the work that I did here, and I've heard you say this before, so I feel comfortable saying it, was me in my bedroom just duking it out with God and myself. And
you need that space.
Yeah.
And the
without the opportunity to go to run back to an unhealthy fix.
That's right.
You took all that away from me. Yeah.
People forget too. You hear these pastors, and I love them. I mean, there's this guy, Sean. He's like amazing. I've never met him. He's the head of Red Rocks.
Yeah, great dude.
And then he'll share about all his stuff, and then he'll talk about his book on anxiety, and he'll give a bunch of hope and tears, and everyone will love it. But he went away suicidally, goes away, and comes off the field, and for some reason, when people get sober or they get well, they forget that they actually even did that. So like the person that literally started Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson, in 1935, was in the hospital when he had his spiritual awakening. He was in a hospital fighting withdrawals. So why are some of us sitting in 12-step meetings when and then there's somebody across the room going, well, you just bought yourself a $35,000 big book. You never needed to go to treatment to begin with. Right? When the actual leader of the whole movement went to treatment. Right. But let me get back. So I'm sitting there talking to him, and I'm saying a lot of times it was the anxiety about the anxiety. Like, I'm so scared that I'm going to have these bad dreams. I'm so scared that I'm going to have this rage. I'm so scared that I'm going to, that it actually not only produces the experience, but it heightens the experience. It's like, it makes you even more anxious. So that it's the anxiety about the anxiety. So I said to him, dude, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We're not setting you up for failure. The worst thing that could happen is the polygraph will come out inconclusive. No one's going to say he failed, he lied, he's full of crap. It's going to come back and say something's off. His heart rate was fluctuating, and it's inconclusive. So I could see in his eyes as I was sharing with him, I could see his anxiety going down. And I said, so really, what you need to do is know that you're going to be okay walking into this. And I'm sharing this with you because we all can almost, in a lot of ways, produce our greatest fears because of our fear. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this story is because I'm walking in today going, what are we going to talk about? And I'm thinking, all of this is universal. So someone might be watching and be like, yeah, I'm not doing a polygraph, and nor would I ever need to do one. I can't relate. This is, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the universality of us having to do polygraphs. Right. I'm talking about the universal experience of these emotions that we feel, and these narratives that we create, and these stories we create about ourselves and others and God. And the core of all of this is a lot of the emotions, the shame, the guilt, the regret, the anger, the fear, the anticipation, the depression, the self-pity, the excitement, all the things that come with it, the internal experience and mindset that comes with it is pretty universal. Like, you and I could sit down. We started right before the recording, and we were like, I was like, yeah, we better hit record. I know exactly how you're feeling about what you're going through right now. And the reality is, no, well, not exactly, but I know enough to know how to relate and how to show up for you and really listen to you and not make it about me, but give you enough sense that I'm not like sitting there about to, dial 911. Like this dude's off his rocker.
Well, it makes you feel less lonely. Like when you say like, hey, I actually had something similar and I know what you're going through and whatever, it didn't feel like, in that moment you're trying to top my story. It was more like, hey, I know what you're experiencing, which in that moment, what I interpret is I know that fear. I know the sadness that comes up. I know, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm not alone in this. This is a human experience that happens, and that isolation is deadly. So it is. I don't know that people realize even in some of those like small interactions, like what we just had, how much healing happens in that connection.
Yes,
in the shared experience.
And the risk was you shared. Yeah. You said something that was really embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I was with this guy, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I was coaching and it's probably part of it was diversion. I hired a physical trainer.
Okay.
And so I'm at the gym an hour ago, and he works with some of our clients. This guy, Ryan, he's a cool guy. And he's an engineer, though. He's like kind of like he's heady. And I was telling him how I talk to men about coming in. And I was like, I could set you up with like different meetings in this building here that we exist in. And I said, and here's how you want to play, like when you're talking to the guys across the hall in that ball pen, a bunch, 20 something year olds, and how you want to make it seem appropriately, like this is smart. He was like, Michael Jordan wasn't going into a shame cycle because he had a trainer and a masseuse and a shot coach, and he's wanting to amp his game up. You want to amp your game up. You want to accomplish your goals. You want to get to where you want to go. Stop thinking that somehow there's a deficit because you can't figure it all out yourself, and that you can't consistently come up with the willpower to do it. Be smart, be humble, hire the coach. We all need that in our lives. So I was sharing that, and I said it's very similar to recovery, very similar to what you do, Ryan, in that you're helping people to go into pain in order to get to a place where what you guys call VO2 max. How quickly can your body recalibrate and get back to a sense of homeostasis? That's what we're trying to teach our men. We're trying to say it's not if, it's when you mess up, when you screw up, when you go into a shame cycle, when you do something that you regret, when you slip back into an old behavior, how quickly can you rebound? And it's the same thing with working out. And you need to show people how you're going to teach them how to move into discomfort, stay in discomfort, come out of discomfort, have a new level of self-efficacy, move into more discomfort. And it's not rocket science, but we need each other. And we need to be humble. Like you just put it out there. You were like, man, dude, this is what I'm going through.
Yeah.
It opened up a 5-minute conversation that could have changed our day.
Oh, 100%. And likewise, I think there's something to being people of psychological safety, because you're a person and a leader who sometimes, maybe even to a fault, leads with your weakness.
Right.
So like, this is not like, oh, Dinneen's coming in, he's the CEO of our company, I need to perform for him. How crazy is it that the first thing we talked about was something that was
super
embarrassing and vulnerable? Yeah. So there's something to, as humans, us carrying ourselves in a way where people feel like, hey, I can trust this person with some vulnerable stuff, and it's not going to be turned around and used against me to harm me or whatever. It's like, and that's what's happening in the quote unquote real world. That's why it's like sometimes even you come out of Valiant, or for me, I come out of Valiant, and one of the hardest things, and this is something we've talked about even incorporating into our programming, is knowing how to function again in a world where a lot of times they don't value the kind of radical honesty that we've come to be a norm here.
Right.
Like I'll be with a brother, and it's so normal for us to get past small talk into depth of what's going on in our lives, because we know how good the connection and the healing is when we share. But then I'll have friends that aren't in recovery, and they'll just look at you with deer in the headlights. Like, why are you telling me this? And part of what you have to learn when you leave here is how to not overshare with people at the gym, where it's like, wow, sign up for all that, you know?
Right.
But it does go back to what you started, the narratives, not just about ourselves, but about others. So
Yeah.
I've written a narrative about Dinneen that he's a safe person for me to be vulnerable with, you know? So even with that idea of narratives, for someone who's listening or watching, who that's a new concept, a new idea, can you kind of like at the ground level unpack, when you say narrative, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, and it might not even actually be the dictionary.
Sure.
Where there's a
more of a therapeutic
beginning, meat, and there's some cohesion. There's a storytelling. There's a narrative. I mean it more in what we create. I was using it more in the context of like what we create from a very early age about ourselves and about the world to try to make sense of things that could actually really help us and really hurt us if we're not willing to examine them and let go of them. So you just teed this whole conversation up when you talked about how we went right to vulnerability, because for me, I'm thinking about it as this double-edged sword for me. So we both really like that book, because I heard you preach and I was blown away. But you incorporated Henry Nouwen's book on the Return of the Prodigal Son, and he used to be one of my favorite authors. And you know, you're in recovery. I'm in recovery 33 years, but you get hot on an author who you really feel like understands you and that you're not alone in this world, like a poet. Or somebody that can speak to you. For me, early on, it was Van Morrison.
Okay.
I literally thought that Van was like, at one point, I didn't have a sponsor. I was alone. I was living in a studio apartment on Route 9 in Framingham. I was commuting to EMC Squared up in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, and I would it was right around when Van got sober in the early 90s, late 80s, and he was putting out these just amazing albums like Hymns to the Silence and Moondance and all that. But there were lines where I'd be like, this man understands my internal experience. Yeah. And he speaks to something beyond. He speaks to some sort of mystical part of life that I yearn for and that I can taste a little bit. And I just felt like I felt like, wow, there's somebody out there that
gets it.
That gets it.
Yeah.
So, you know, Nouwen, when I'm reading that book, and he's doing these like parallel experiences of like Rembrandt's life of being this guy, cocky and all over the place and making money and drinking and partying, but then losing kids and losing his reputation and then getting beat down and having this like, and showing it through his artwork and showing that like the humility and just showing the phases he went through, and then but also incorporating the biblical story and the implications of when you ask for your share of while your father's still alive, and all the sort of more the Hebrew and Jewish experience of that story, what that would have meant, right? Of the eldest and the father and everything, and the youngest going away, and then also our own particular journey, the human journey of going away from God, going away from ourselves, losing ourselves, going to a distant land, trying to find the happiness that we think is out there, or the love that we think that we're going to get, or the notoriety or admiration or the conquering that is going to satisfy this yearning in the soul. And it's so there's like we all go away from ourselves. We don't have to ask for the money and end up in a distant country. It's metaphorical,
right?
And the coming home, but then that part of us, that eldest son part of us, that gets to when you do get your shit together, and that there is they used to say like alcoholics are the only people that can lay in the gutter and judge the people walking by. It's like so you don't think alcoholics have egos? Alcoholics. I worked in a homeless shelter, and alcoholics are just so judgmental. It's unbelievable.
Right. It's like, how do you have the moral high ground to judge? But we do.
Yeah, but we do.
Yeah.
And so you get these, and then you go into these elder son phases where it's just like, look at me, and then why aren't I getting this? Like, God, I'm not not cheating on my wife. I'm not doing anything. I'm showing up at the soccer practices. I'm providing. I'm like, and it's just like, and it's like this almost self-righteousness and this demand that life work out, and this resistance. I think this is where now was going with this whole thing, was this resistance to embracing the heart of the Father who waits, who's over himself, who doesn't really care what everybody's thinking and feeling. He's in enough pain. He's seen enough that he's not overly impressed with who he is. He's there to love and respond and to run to and to embrace and to plead with the eldest son to come in, to try to do everything he can, but still need to let go. He couldn't make the youngest son come home. He couldn't make the eldest son come into the party. Right. There's a free will component to all of this, but there's been this. Now I'm going to put the narrative into it. My identification with the youngest son has been so thick, and it was so solidified even before I touched the drink, before I started acting out sexually, before I did drugs, before I got arrested, before I created damage in this world. I was already this little dyslexic, ADD, there's something wrong with me. And I had already set up a younger son narrative of getting kicked out of class by the nun. Then they would feel sorry for me. I would be in a shame cycle. They would give me a piece of cake or soda. I mean, this is 7 years old.
Wow.
7 years old. I was already had set up this dynamic that the shame dynamic. If there's anything that exemplifies my life story, it's shame and how thick it's been, and how much relief I've gotten, and how much reconciliation I've come, and how much healing in that area. That's all my story is about. Is just a buildup and a healing of shame. But then it's like, at what point in your life, 57 years old, beautiful kids. My daughter just wrote me a letter, and it said something like, "Dad, I don't see you as this person that you describe."
Wow.
From the 80s, where you were this guy, and she was, "That is not my experience of you."
Whew. Man.
Like, and then she listed off what her experience was of me, and I was like, and it's hard to handle. You almost have to reject it.
Yeah.
Because it's too thoughtful and beautiful, and that you almost can't handle it.
It's probably hard to receive.
It's hard to receive.
Yeah.
But my point is like how much hustle I've gone into my own life, this 33 years of recovery, of seeking, how much of that has been this overcompensation for this kid that thinks he's the youngest son, who thinks he's unworthy and just messed up, and has to now overcompensate and knock it out of the park so that I can make up or burn off bad karma or get God to see that I'm the good boy now, or I'm the eldest son, or instead of just embracing the story of it's okay to move into this fatherly role. And to get over yourself, and to be yourself, and to be okay, and to not downplay yourself, but not upplay yourself. Like there's just like, it's just you're just not that interested in any of it.
I love that.
It's just a hard. I'm describing it as like something that is. It seems like it's almost easy to do, like a decision. Like, hey, get over yourself. Embrace this new, but the internal war, is what I'm really talking about.
Yeah.
How do we give up now? How do we let go of old narratives about ourselves, others, and God?
Yeah, I don't know. Here's what you're making me think.
Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt you because the train of thought you're on is awesome. I'm just thinking about this story in Luke 15. So whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, this ancient story is so applicable to anybody. I mean, the depth of this story, I keep learning new things about it all the time. Like it's like you think you would read a story and be like you got all that you can get out of it, but there's just so many layers. Well, here's a new layer that just came to me. because you're sitting here talking about the narratives and the stories that we write and who we become and all those kind of things. It's actually only in the Western culture that the translation is called the parable of the prodigal son. Over in Eastern cultures and Eastern religions, it's actually called the parable of the running father. And I think part of it is, I'll say for me, and especially in Western cultures, it's so egocentric that even the name of the story is about us. But then we realize that, wait a minute, I'm not the central figure in this story. It's not the story. It's not about the prodigal son. It's not even about the older brother. It's about a running father. And understanding the running father is how you rewrite, I think, and test this.
This is bone chilling.
Is how you rewrite the story. Because here's what you made me think. When the prodigal son comes home to the running father, why did the father run out to him? Well, I think it could be a couple of reasons. I think he might have been excited to see him. I also think there was people back at the house. I think the running father could have potentially ran to him because he wanted to present his son how he saw him, but not how he was presenting himself. I mean, think about that. Like he says, go get the finest robe. Well, whose robe is the finest robe? The father's. So he runs to him. The son has been reciting this narrative. Remember when he was in the pit, he's like, here's what I'll go back and here's what I'll say. So to your point, there's a narrative. He's writing this narrative and he's practicing it.
Yeah.
Well, if you read in the script, and I literally just thought this when you said it, he doesn't even get through his whole story and the dad interrupts him.
Right.
He's like, that's not the narrative.
Right.
Go get the robe.
Right.
And so when they walk up together to the house,
whoa,
he's wearing a ring and a robe. He's not looking like he's in the pit. And the father is rewriting the story for him and re-presenting him to everyone as who the running father sees him as, but not who he saw him as.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. You're reminding
I had goosebumps as I was thinking about that.
I have goosebumps right now. And one of the things is, you move from head prayer to heart prayer, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why we sometimes repeat, right? Like mm-hmm. I'll repeat a prayer
like a liturgy or something even.
Yeah. In order for it to slowly open the heart up and then start praying from our being versus our head, right? Mm-hmm. But every now and then, I'm like, you have to pray like you mean it, like you really mean it. And you're reminding me of like that, like Psalm 23, where it's just like the cup is going to overflow. He's putting a ring on the finger. Yeah. I am gonna dwell like in
goodness and mercy are gonna follow me.
This thing has my back. The Creator has my back, and it's almost like I'm the obstacle, because it's like, if that's true, and I'm willing to completely embrace it, that puts a whole different view of this day and my life. But if I'm like, no, dude, you have no idea the shit that I've done. Mm-hmm. It's like,
if that's the narrative you're starting out, if that's the psalm you're reading,
I'm in trouble.
Different outcome.
But
if it's the Lord is my shepherd and I won't want for anything.
So it's almost like this belief that it's like this guy David, who seems a little off the wall from the Old Testament. It's like his belief though was, he's going to forgive me and he's going to welcome me back and I'm going to be okay. And he is going to restore me. Like, I just know
he restores my soul. I don't restore my own soul.
Right. I just know it.
Yes.
And so now that I'm digging into that lately, because it's like I'm not digging into actually the Bible, but I'm digging into that concept of like, when it's this constant, your faith has healed you, or it's your belief, it's as a man thinketh, so it is. Mm-hmm. All this kind of metaphysical meets Bible meets everything, of like how much of this really is manifestation and belief and vision, and how much of life really is about the narrative, about the mindset, and it's not like you can fake it yourself out, like positive.
It's not that.
It's not, and I think
it's deeper than that.
It's so deeper, much deeper than that. That it's like this willingness to completely step into the unknown. I'll give you an example. You know how I do this off the wall stuff. Like, this client was like, "Yeah, I can't come in. I got to go to this conference." And I was like,
"Great, I'll go."
Yeah, I was like, "Dude, I'll just come in, get settled in. I'll go with you." And so we're in this conference.
Jill, your wife's gonna be like, "What is he? Where's he going again?"
She doesn't even question anymore. She's like, as long as we're not moving,
Yeah.
as long as you haven't,
That's funny.
But
we need to get her on the podcast, by the way. But go ahead.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm in this thing, and the first night of this conference, called the Awaken Conference, I had no idea what it was. And it was like Christianity meets landmark. And it was like a self-improvement, check if you really want to grow, you have to like question the lens you're looking through type stuff. And the first night, the head woman walks up to me, the head trainer, and she's like, you want some feedback? And I was like, sure. And she's like, I experience you as arrogant and thinking you're superior.
Whoa.
And I was like, she walks away. And I was like, and the next day, I had made friends with this guy. He's an Army Ranger, like psycho, coolest guy ever. He's like number 6 out of 250 Army Rangers. He's now retired, but he's like he carries that intensity with him.
Yeah. And
I see him walk by in the hotel. And I was like, dude, that's Squid last night, the head trainer, because he was one of the trainers. I was like, you're the queen bee. I was like, I don't know what was going on with her, but this is, and he's like, can I give you some feedback? I'm like, yeah, everyone else is feeling free. And I was like, bring it, man. And he's like, just continue to question the lens you're looking through, Dinneen. And all of a sudden he walks away. And granted, remember, and this is sort of ego, but sort of like shame that I'm saying this. Like I don't know anyone that's worked harder on themselves than me.
Okay.
So like,
I believe you, yeah.
I'm going to therapy later today, and she's a rock star. Yeah. This woman, she's helped change my life.
Yeah.
But
you're still in meetings all the time.
I'm in meetings. Yeah. I'm doing retreats. I'm reading books. I'm doing centering prayer twice a day to connect to the contemplative movement. I am like trying to get in nature as much as possible. Like the list goes on and on. I just came from the gym. I'll do yoga tomorrow. Like it's like, and it's a lot of it. Some of it's functional, some of it's dysfunctional, and like how much work I have to do to get to like a normal baseline, what I would consider a normie. But
you're also pouring out a lot, so you have to fill back up a lot. But anyways,
but all that work, and I had never come to this deep. When it goes to 7 layers deep, and it gets out of your head, and it rips through your body. And they call it catharsis, or they call it a psychic change, or they call it, but what you were talking about was really important, is like these moments where you're wrestling with God in your room alone, and you're having these profound moments. Like, and it's like in life, they're few and far between. Like, if you get 20 in a lifetime of these like massive mental shifts, you are a really blessed man. And all of a sudden he walks away, and all of a sudden I realize, all I've been doing my whole life since I was a little chubby boy was taking your temperature to see how you felt about me. And then I was going to adjust my self-perception. We call this codependency, but like how deep this runs when you're swimming, when you're a fish swimming in the water, you don't actually know you're in the ocean. When something is so deeply ingrained into your psyche, you don't actually even know. Everybody else kind of is tapped in a little bit. They could see how kind of needy you are for like a hug or whatever. Yeah. But you're not. You're kind of aware, but you're not as aware as you could be if you were actually out of your body, looking at the hardware and the software from an outside perspective. And all of a sudden, this realization rips through my body that you can't live this way anymore. You have got to get to a place, however painful, and if the world rejects you, and if you end up alone, because by the way, all of these narratives have consequences. If I truly become my true self, whatever that is, or if I truly walk out, and the great spiritual teachers are really good examples of this. It's just walk out and just be rejected by the world, sit under a tree, whatever it is, right? There's always this story of like this dude has lost his mind, whatever it takes to be free from myself and the narratives that I've created about me and God. bring it.
Wow.
Bring it. And I think it takes a certain fusion of pain meets realization meets gift meets grace meets everything. But when you get those moments, it's not as embarrassing as, gosh, I can't believe it's taken this long. Sometimes it's like, wow, thank you that I'm finally there.
Right.
Thank you that I'm finally there. And it's a little embarrassing because you started a treatment center for this very reason. You know what I mean? You teach what you need to learn. You teach what you need to learn. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I'm teaching all this stuff that I actually need to learn.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
So I'm saying all this because it's like, how much of me can just jump down and dirty with you because I so identify with the younger son?
Yeah.
How much of it is unhealthy? How much is healthy? I think more healthy with you and I.
For sure.
But so I just have to, as I'm going through this new phase of kind of spiritual development, of like getting to a new level of, I'd rather live in truth than make you feel comfortable and make me feel comfortable, put us all in a box. I'd rather be so uncomfortable living in truth right now than anything. Then when you hit this new phase, it makes you question everything. And that's why I was struggling. Like, what are Drew and I going to talk about? I don't know if I sometimes know the truth.
Yeah.
Because I'll read people like Cynthia Bourgeois and like this woman that I found lately, and I'll be like,
yeah,
this woman is off the charts. Right. But I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm still this, like, in some ways I'm down the line, I'm 33 or sober. And in some ways I'm like at the front end of so many things.
Yes.
So many things.
I think that's the beauty of spirituality and of just this whole thing of, I think that's awesome. Like what you just said actually gives me more hope than makes me feel shame, because I'm like, gosh, at first I'm like, well, if Dinneen is just learning this stuff, then man, where am I? But when I actually think about it, I'm like, the beauty of it is not to be cheesy or cliche, but you talk about it being more of a journey than a destination. I want to fix it. I want to arrive. I want to, even when some of these situations we were talking about earlier popped up, the first thing I want to do is to spring into action. But because I had tools from Valiant here, I was able to lead myself to just sit in it, sit in the pain and being uncomfortable, move through it, but before I move through it, to actually feel it. Hey, what's coming up for me? What am I feeling right now? Is this fear? Am I sad? Do I feel hurt by this? Whatever it is, because I wanted to just jump into action immediately. But the beauty of what you're talking about, and the reason why this is hopeful for anybody listening, that's like, okay, CEO, founder of a company that does this for people, been in recovery for a long time, is having aha moments almost daily, is still going to meetings, is still going to therapy, is still going to silent retreats, spiritual retreats, whatever comes up, is still willing to be confronted and receive, feedback. It makes me think, okay, great, we're all on the path.
Yeah. There was a group of guys that would, there was like a number of different people that would go to onsite, but this original group of men, this guy, Gary Fisher and Bobby Ferguson. The kind of like guys that are now kind of in retirement and like, there's a guy, Mike Netherton, who used to be that like COO of Betty Ford when Betty Ford was like the place to go. All of that, they started a group and they started getting real with each other. And then I think we were group number 3, like that started going to onsite, but they paved the way of like, I was like, oh man, if Bobby Ferguson could get super real about like how scared he is about, he called it like census deprivation disorder. Cause I was telling him one day, I was like, dude, I am so scared right now about my census. And he's like, yeah, join the club of treatment center owners, Dinneen. Right. Like, you are not unique. Right. I'm like, dude, I'm not as spiritual as I'm like, I'm a weak man. Right, I'm like, my whole life is like correlated to like how my wife feels about me and my census. And he's like, yeah, that's not impressive in any direction. He's like, that's how we live. And it was just, it made it so comfortable for me to be human and be like, oh, wait a second. Jaywalker is like a massively successful company.
Sure.
And Bobby's had a huge impact on this field. and he has been as scared as I am. And all it took was for me getting real,
Mm-hmm.
and then all it took was for him to be like,
He
yeah.
met you in that place. It's
And it
exactly what you
wasn't-
did for me earlier. Yeah,
Yeah,
same thing.
And it wasn't a pat on the head, like, oh, it's gonna be okay. It was more just like, been there,
Yeah.
and not there now, but yeah, you're right on time.
I've got a friend that's a business owner, and he's very, very successful. And I asked him one time about, just his process, whatever. And he says, I wake up scared, I go to bed scared, and everything in between is the grace of God. And I'm looking at this guy, and he kind of said it with a smile, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at this guy like, what? Like how? Like you're a multi-million, like you're running this massive company.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm scared to death. I wake up scared. I go to bed scared. It's just like, and I'm like, oh man, I thought there was a place where we wouldn't have to feel this anxiety anymore. And he's like, no, it's, but it goes back to what you were saying earlier when you're talking about Psalm 23 and some of the others things. It's which narrative are you going to step into at the beginning of the day? Is it, I shall not want, you guide me, you protect me, you restore me, you lead me by still waters, you bring peace, you whatever. Do we recite these narratives of ourselves, or is it, man, I'm scared and I better go out and work hard and do something and roll up my sleeves and I got to make this happen. And so we live in this anxiety versus surrender posture.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until really for me it was Psalm 51. And again, I know there's people that are listening and watching this that our beliefs are all over on the spectrum. So this is not about my beliefs, but just in general of praying these ancient prayers and these liturgies that get the focus off of ourselves. And you mentioned David earlier. This guy was a train wreck. I mean, a murderer, an adulterer, whatever. And then here God says, David's a man after my own heart.
Yeah.
Like, David's my guy.
Mind-boggling.
You're just like, David really is your dude? Why?
I still struggle with that.
I think he's just because he was so honest.
Yeah.
He just was like, God, I'm pissed at you today. Where have you been? Why do you? And then it's almost like he would start with that narrative, and then halfway through the psalm, you'd see him course correct, and it's like, but I know you're.
I do that all the time.
Do you?
When I used to journal all the time, it would come out that way. It would come out like all this crazy and accusations, fear, shame, and then sort of like a plea, and then ending with somehow you work your way through.
Is that I mean, that sounds like that's a great recipe.
Into gratitude. Somehow you're like, yeah, but in the past, I've always come out of this. And in the past, God has always shown up in the past. And then all of a sudden it moves into gratitude, and that wasn't on purpose. It actually just happened from just barfing it out and then working through it.
So it was like, here's where I'm at right now, what I'm feeling. Help me. And then ending with gratitude. I know or reminding ourselves of who God is.
And what I want to share too is just like, so as we kind of move towards conclusion, I want to share like how this narrative manifests itself internally with me. And I want to give one example. And I don't remember, I'm at the front end of this. I can't speak to it as though I've tapped in to the sunlight of the Spirit. I've tapped into this power source. I've tapped into this, like, this true self that I'm going to live in and stay in. But I'm very aware. Sometimes they call it the negative way, like we kind of know what God isn't. And that's how a lot of people find God is it's like you just, by the process of elimination of what God isn't.
Oh wow.
I've
never heard that.
They call it, like some Latin term for the negative path to God. But in some ways it's like I see these parts of me, and you've witnessed these. It's not like I'm hiding them as well as my ego thinks it is. It's like I have this part. You found me one day. I was hiding, and it's like I have this part that hides. That's like I'm too much for the world. My energy's too much. I'm too passionate. My emotions can light up a room, but they can also be toxic for people. And so you need to save yourself, and you need to save everybody else by not being around anybody. That's where some of the self-care comes in. It's like when I'm doing all this cool stuff, some of it is to to keep me occupied and keep me in the zone and not doing anything self-destructive, but not actually engage the world fully. And then there's this other part of me, because you talked about feeling all those emotions and the groups and all. And then there's this other part of me that is savage. It's the kid in New York where they teach you, dude, if you know this is going down, hit hard, hit first, and act crazier than you are and act way tougher than you are, because you're about to get killed. You are going to get killed.
It's just a survival mechanism.
Yeah. And so there's a part of me that's like, we're going to fucking take action. Action.
Right.
I'm spraying emails. Yeah. I'm like it's good. Shit is going down, whether we like it or not. We're gonna burn this.
But that's just a hit first fear reaction.
It's a hit first fear reaction, and it's like
it's funny.
And it's like, and the fear is it's like, if I don't act crazier than I am, bad things are gonna happen, right? And it's like, so you got to go alpha, Mach 10 with your hair on fire. And neither of those are really the essence of me, but I think they are me, these parts, right? These voices, these behaviors, these internal pockets. The truth is that there's a deeper sense of self. There's a true self in there that are neither of those things. Those are just extreme examples, polarized examples of what happens to me when I'm in fear, when I'm scared. And the journey is less about satiating the fear of like staying away from people or motivating and getting things done and making change. Neither of those actually accomplish the goal of coming home, right? Of like this, like the running too, that was amazing. And this coming home experience and coming to this like true sense of self, like who are you? Who are you really? Who are you really? Who is your true self? And so this is kind of crazy how you kind of teed it up, like you always do in a cool way of like the ring goes on the finger, the robe gets taken out. Maybe that's more who we really are. We are the child.
Yes.
We're the child that that for whatever reason, this dad or mom or universe or thing has taken a real liking to.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, I know who you are, and I really still like you.
Right.
And so this power center, this source, is inside of us, and it's our job to go through whatever Lord of the Rings trilogy we have to go through
right,
in order to tap it.
Yes.
And when you tap it, when you grab the ring, when you finally go, and you don't necessarily need to fight, but you do need to walk through the dark, and there's going to be a lot of creepy crawlies internally. The end result is pretty good. The end of the story is good. It's so I guess what I'm trying to say is like,
I love that.
That's really where I'm headed with this, like let go of narratives, question. Maybe I'm not the prodigal son. Maybe I'm not the eldest son. Maybe there's elements of the father inside of me. Maybe there is a unique sense of who you are, how you are wired that is not fully tapped yet, and that you're in it. You're in the process, and it's better than thinking somehow, no offense, of like making enough money where I could buy season tickets to the Broncos or something like that. That's going to fill a hole,
right?
Like because otherwise, I'm going to think the answer is external.
That's right.
I'm going to constantly think that the answer is outside of me. If I make, this is where the power comes back to you and I. If I make it that the problems, the obstacles, the healing, and the answers and the power is all within, then I'm no longer a victim. This was done to me. I'm no longer the perpetrator. I'm no longer any of this. I'm just a man that's seeking to tap into the true self.
Yeah.
And to have enough guts to try to do it, because I'll tell you, I'll end with this, is this, the real fear is, what if I tap in and I find out you are the scumbag that you always thought you were.
Mm.
Or that you are unworthy and you will get rejected and you will be left alone.
Yeah.
And people will wise up and you will be unloved and you won't have people around you. Like I know that's very dramatic, but that's at the core
Sure.
of the human experience.
Sure. Absolutely.
Of the tribal experiences. Will I be left? Do
Right.
I belong?
Right.
Where do I fit? But fuck it.
It's worth it. You gotta.
Let's just go
the
for
alternatives.
it. The alternative is like you just keep the smarter or the more creative you are, you just keep reinventing a more savvy way to outmaneuver yourself and your ego to get what you think you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't land you. It only lands you temporarily in the sweet spot. And then it's back to where's my senses?